My brain, like most brains, really enjoys conveniences. But I would say for the last handful of years, honestly increasing even worse since the start of the pandemic, I have noticed my heavy reliance on conveniences and convenience culture. So over the last handful of years, but especially in the last few months, I've been very much digging into this convenience culture thing. Why is it making me feel so stuck? What should I be doing? What are some ideas? And only in the last month or so have I been like, I have a game plan for this, which I've been calling microdosing inconvenience. Before we get to my game plan for that, I want to talk about convenience culture, kind of wrap up a lot of the things that I have read and watched and listened to talking about convenience culture, because if you clicked on this video, you're probably interested in convenience culture, you probably kind of hate it, you know there's some issues with it, but you just can't stop, it's very addicting. What's going on with it? So let's get into that. So there's multiple streams of thought around it being, like humans really like the dopamine hit of something being really convenient, which I will get into with some of this, but also the concept of an evolutionary mismatch. That being that we were hardwired for a very long time to be hunter-gatherers. The industrial era and our modern convenience era with technology is very, very short in the whole of human existence. So for a very, very long time, we were surviving through very harsh conditions, and so we were wired to try to find ways to make things more convenient for us and to avoid those really harsh things, because things were very harsh, right? Our odds of survival were not high. So the people that ended up, staying in when there was dangerous weather or a dangerous animal or whatever, those are the people that passed on their genes and survived, right? So we were programmed to want to kind of rest and avoid hard things and find some inconveniences, but also at the time we were forced to still do hard things, right? There weren't many conveniences, so therefore seeking them out was helpful for us versus harmful. Now that has flipped, and we are having a hard time as a human society finding the balance there. Because of course, rest and, finding some conveniences is still good. I think in almost every video that I watched on this, people talked about we all agree that dishwashers and washing machines are good. There are certain things that we don't want to have to go back to doing. And those things did free up a lot of time for meaningful activity, which I will get to in a second, because that's a key thing with this whole conveniences and inconveniences and whatever. Obviously, this is not at all a video about me saying we need to go back to a more primitive, basic lifestyle, homesteading, even though I watch a lot of homesteading content, but homesteading or anything, no. But are there lots of things that are so convenient that they have gotten bad for us and for our brains? Yes. And why is that? So in doing a lot of my research about inconveniences and conveniences, which by the way, I will link the videos and the articles and things that I'm referencing down below, but we think of conveniences as giving us more free time to do things that are meaningful with our time. But often we don't do anything with that free time we are given back by more modern conveniences, and we instead just kind of wander around for the next dopamine hit. Think about this, for example. One of the things I'm going to talk about later is something like DoorDash. You're like, oh, I don't want to cook. I'm going to order something because I just don't want to cook. Instead of not cooking, freeing up time for you to do something else that you really want to do and use brain space for it, what do you usually end up doing? Tell you what I usually end up doing. I usually end up on my phone, scrolling until the food gets there. That didn't free up any meaningful time. Now, some people are gonna go, oh, but the scrolling, it's good for my brain, it gives me a chance to relax. It doesn't. That's a whole separate video though. The scrolling is actually really bad for our brains because we cannot emotionally regulate with all of the different things that are fed to us in an algorithm. It's really bad. I can't go into it here. It would make this video very long. What that is just chasing dopamine hits because we think it feels good. And so that information and everything we're constantly chasing. So we just sit there for 15 minutes that we could have spent cooking a fairly basic but decent meal, and we order food instead. So what are we getting back from that time exactly? Especially for conveniences that we're paying for. Are we actually getting meaningful time back for things that we pay for? This is going to be different. I'm making mass generalizations here, right? Some people might. Some people may be like, you know what? I get everything delivered and it's great. And I work on my art and my research and my things and I spend time with my family and cool. I'm not referring to those people. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people aren't going to be watching because they don't have a problem with this. You and I do. So the first question with the whole convenience thing is, Are those conveniences actually giving us meaningful time back, especially the ones that we're paying for, because so many modern conveniences are actually fairly expensive for what they are? And is the time that we're getting back worth the loss of experiences that we may be missing out on from those conveniences? Because inconveniences expand the number of potential things that can happen to you in a day. I'll come back to that. Sit with that though. When things become easier, we often end up filling our time with more easy tasks because we no longer have the mental tolerance for those more challenging ones, even those that might be more fulfilling. So we need to increase our tolerance and our skill set for those slightly more challenging tasks. And that requires there to be a balance and for us to sometimes encounter meaningful resistance. That being more inconveniences that expand the number of things that happen to us, expand more opportunities, expand our skill set. I know I've heard so many people in my personal life, professional life, online, whatever, just lament social media, for example, taking up so much time. How much time we spend doom scrolling or just like watching endless content, filling our brains up with like nothing because we just can't stand the thought of doing something even slightly more challenging, like reading or even sometimes playing video games or even watching TV, like all of those things that people used to lament as like, oh my God, it's bad for your brain. It's like those things are actually better than like social media doom scrolling. And then other things like, doing some kind of art, even something basic, or creating of some kind or cooking or reading or whatever, that is even harder because we are losing the skill set. That muscle is atrophying because we don't use it enough. Everything is so convenient. You can drive everywhere. You can call a car to places. You can have AI, I'm not getting into all the AI, but you can have AI do a ton of things for you and just spit out answers so that you don't even have to Google a thing anymore and think of how to have a search phrase. You can just type something random into an AI chatbot and it'll just spit it out for you. No thoughts whatsoever. This is not good for our brain. We're already seeing the research results of that. Some of these things are not, again, universally bad because there are some people, like disabled people, who need food delivery services and things like that, right? Because that actually frees up time and energy to do other things. Like I said, this is not a universal truth. But for those of us that don't need the food delivery services and things like that, we overly rely on them and they become a crutch. Something I found really interesting when, again, looking into this more is there was lots of videos and things from different creators and creatives that were talking about inconveniences and adding to your creativity, boredom. And boredom is needed for creativity. Inconvenient things and meaningful resistance, allowing there to then be more room for interesting things to happen to you. And as soon as I sat with that idea, I was like, oh my God, obviously yes. Because inconveniences create stories. And that is a big thing for connection, right? We have a lot of people being like, there's a loneliness epidemic. People are stuck at home, not doing anything because they can get everything delivered to them. They don't need to leave. They don't need to talk to friends. And also, it is incredibly boring if someone's like, yeah, what'd you get up to this weekend? And you're like, I just scrolled on my phone and I had DoorDash delivered a bunch of times and I had Instacart bring my groceries and didn't really do anything. Versus, and this is not a black and white scenario, but for example, being like, oh yeah, I worked on this knitting project that I was working on, and I cooked a meal from some food that I got from the farmer's market, so I made bread for the first time. And yeah, when I was at the farmer's market, I got some fresh flowers, here's a cute picture of them, whatever. Again, not everything's gonna be perfect, it doesn't need to be everything, but even that being like a fairly simple life, right? It has much more stories attached to it and possibility for other things. And I'm sure from that there could be like, yeah, and at the farmer's market I saw this, and this, and I saw this cute dog, and I talked to a woman who has sesame-free hummus, and there's all of these potentials in doing more of those things, even if it's an inconvenient thing. Like even if it's like, oh my God, I had to wait 45 minutes for a bus to show up and blah, blah, blah. And I was talking to the woman next to me and she said that she always misses buses. That is still a story. That is still connection to community, being able to talk to people about stuff, much more interesting than people being like, I just sat my way through life. So that friction allows for more creativity and connection, especially. One of the things that I've been doing recently with this microdosing inconvenience is I've been going to the farmer's market for over a month now. I have multiple farmer's markets. I live in Chicago. We're very blessed to have a number of really good farmer's markets. And so I've been going because I just kept in my head being like, if I don't go at 9 in the morning, then it's not good and I can't go and I'm never going to get up at 9 in the morning on a weekend. And it's like, no, these farmer's markets are open till like 2 and 3. You can go in the afternoon. It's fine. So as an example of all of the things that come out of getting food at the farmer's market, for example, it allows more socialization than I would get when I am at home. Now, it's not like I'm sitting there and having a chatty chat with every single person that I'm like passing by or like every single vendor. However, I am talking to multiple vendors. Today, for example, when I went to the farmer's market, I asked a vendor about like, hey, do you have any softer cat treats? Because I need like pill pockets for my cats, but I would rather get them from a local place and like a local vendor or whatever. And we had this wonderful conversation about how it's like, oh yeah, to keep those things soft, you need to use a bunch of preservatives and other things. And that's why they're so much more expensive and whatever. And what are other items that I could potentially use for like a pill pocket cat treat that isn't those? And maybe there's a way I can make them at home. A 3-minute conversation, delightful. It's not like we're besties or anything, but like a thing that is a human connection thing that we used to do all the time because we used to go and get food from local markets and like neighborhood stores, which I know if you're European and you're watching this or some other country, I know you guys still have that and it's delightful. And I'm so glad that you have public infrastructure that allows for this. This doesn't apply to you. But the way that we get food now has been, again, very short amount of time for society. So even going to the grocery store is going to give you more human connection, obviously, than like something like Instacart, right? Another big reason I've been going to the farmer's market is supporting local communities and local farmers. That's been something that I want to put more of my money towards. I have been historically very lazy with food, getting DoorDash, getting like meal delivery services, although I use a thing called Cook Unity, which, and this is not an ad or anything, I mean, I have a code, but I'm not going to even list it. But it like is local chefs that pre-make food that then deliver it to you. And it's cheaper than getting like takeout, but it's obviously more expensive than if you just made it yourself. So it's like this in-between thing. So I try to do my best even when I'm getting something like that. But yeah, I was like not making my own food for a minute there, where for most of my life I've made my own meals. It was only until I moved to Chicago where we are in a wealth of food, like so many good places to order takeout from and whatever, that I started actually ordering food because it was convenient and it was available, right? But now more than ever, I want to support my local communities and local food growers and things and eating more seasonally. There's so many things that are good about that, whatever. And so being more in touch with like, here's what's seasonally available in my state, in the part of my state. Here's the people that actually picked this food. Like this food didn't sit in a warehouse for, like weeks to months in order to get to me. It is of this area right now in season, which is how we've eaten for the majority of our lives. Again, we don't have to go extreme with this. I'm not doing like a Paleolithic diet or anything. It's just like, that is good. And the produce does taste better. I know it tastes better. I made a baked potato soup last week. Divine. The potatoes were so much better. They just are. I don't know what it is. It's what I know what it is actually. It's that it's not sitting there forever, being like preserved in order to make it to you from like a completely other state or other country or whatever. So anyway, that's a whole extra tangent. You get to talk to the people that make the food. You get to talk to the people about the food and be like, hey, is there like a cool way that I could cook this or whatever? And they will be able to tell you. You get outside during the nice weather, or if it is bad weather, there's camaraderie with everyone around you about everyone going out and trekking out in the bad weather. So yeah, and then if I stack this with other things that are more inconvenient, cooking food, for example, that I get from the farmer's market, it levels up the skill of cooking. It allows me to remember how to like plan and things. I know this is simple, but we are losing these skills, guys. It allows me to problem solve. It allows me to now like I'm like learning the skill of going to the farmer's market and being like, I don't know what they're gonna have necessarily. They might be out of some stuff, whatever. And being like, okay, like what do I wanna make? So they have this, I have this, okay, so I can make this. That is a skill set that before I was like, I could look in my pantry and be like, I don't even know what to make, because that skill had atrophied so much. It's a skill that I had in the past and that I was losing because I was so used to being like, I can just order a thing, or I can just order a meal kit thing or whatever. So yeah, all of that to say, there are numerous reasons to engage more with inconveniences, and there are a number of things that are more convenient to us that are just like rotting our brains. And so I am working on microdosing inconvenience in my life, and here are some of the things that I'm doing, and then building upon to do harder things to macrodose inconvenience, which everyone's gonna be different with this. Everyone's gonna have a different thing, but here's some like beginner ideas if you enjoy this. Also, if you enjoy this, I talk about this at length all the time on the Bibliothecary, which is my newsletter. There are 2 different ways to access that down below if you are interested. There is a community there if you would like it, but let's get into what I've been doing. So first, is watching videos on YouTube slower. This is like a very easy entry thing. I'm kind of doing the easy entry stuff and then walking up. I am someone who, for years now, and especially with the short form video, I listen to videos on like 2 times speed. I can't go down necessarily always to 1 speed because some people talk very, very slow. But I need to be able to sit with the discomfort of not having something just flung at me really, really fast because I'm not absorbing it at all. So I've been, especially with my like aesthetic little vlog things that I watch and stuff sometimes, because like I mentioned, I watch a lot of like liberal homesteading and knitting and all of these different things these days. So those are very beautifully curated videos. I am making myself watch them on 1 to 1.25 speed at the most. I am not going above that because I do not need to. And I know I'm addicted to it. I also want to speed it up to 2 speed. I will not allow myself because we are practicing sitting with discomfort and maybe some boredom, because that is okay. Another thing that's similar to that is with other media, like articles or Substacks. I've been reading a lot of Substack lately. I'm not letting myself skim the articles. Common thing that I would do. Common thing that everyone does, right? We kind of skim, whatever. I'm not absorbing anything when I do that. I'm just trying to kind of like get to the next point that's going to grab my attention. It's that damn short form video. I'm telling you, it's ruining my brain. I should add, before I even started any of these things, I've been off all of the short form social media for quite some time now. I occasionally get sucked into an Instagram reel, but I deleted TikTok like months ago. I'm not on Threads or Twitter or any of those things, so I don't get the little short things. I don't watch like shorts or anything on YouTube. I'm not allowed short form video. It's not good for me. So I already eliminated those things. So now I'm trying to get the attention span back and get the inconveniences back. Is it inconvenient sometimes to sit there and read a whole article? Yes. I make myself because that's how you learn things. I've also started doing note-taking, which I also talked about on the Bibliothecary. But I've been doing more in-depth note-taking of things because I realized I was chasing short-form video to like give me knowledge, but I wasn't actually absorbing anything because absorption's inconvenient. So I started note-taking, which is also inconvenient, but I'm learning things. They are sticking in my brain again in a way that they haven't in some time. They were just sloughing off. Now they're getting in there, which is part of why I'm talking about it in this video, because this is something that has wormed its way into my brain. Next thing is picking up food that would usually get delivered. That, for example, that's DoorDash, that's Instacart, that's like going to a grocery store or a farmer's market or whatever. I've ordered, I think since I started doing this, I've ordered DoorDash once, because it truly was like, I need to get something else done. So I was doing something meaningful, right? I was like, I need to get some work done that I really can't sit here and cook. I'm ordering something. And I did get the work done during that time. So in that way, I'm like, you're allowed to potentially get DoorDash, but not that often because DoorDash is expensive. And that's another reason that I'm cutting it out, is it's expensive. But if it truly would add in more meaningful time back, I would allow myself to DoorDash here and there. But generally speaking, if I plan ahead, I don't need to, because I've been doing that lately. I've been like making the things that everyone knows. None of these things are hard or impossible. We all know them. It's like making extra batches of food when I cook so that I have something for lunch, that I don't have to order lunch. Amazing, isn't it? I know. We all know this. Instacart is less bad. I feel like DoorDash is especially egregious with like fees and everything else. But I still am trying to cut out something like Instacart. It's like I can pick up food from the grocery store, but again, mostly I've been going to farmers markets and things, trying to like make things at home, etc. So cutting that out. And then if I do want to order food, being like, if you want to order food so bad, you gotta go pick it up. And then it's like, well, no, I don't want to do that. So usually that will cut out my desire to do it because I'll be like, well, I have to go pick it up anyway, like what's the point? Exactly. And the last microdosing thing, because again, I've leaned into some things that are inconvenient that are also leaning into macrodosing territory. I'll get to that. But the last microdosing thing, which is kind of a border, like it's going to depend for you and where you live, but walking, biking, and taking public transportation. That's the high end of the microdosing. So like I've mentioned, I live in Chicago. We have a fairly robust, for America, transportation system. However, lots of issues. Funding's getting cut for the CTA, which is our public transit, things like that. There's lots of issues, but we are better than a lot of places, right? And we're, big cities and stuff are better than suburbs for things like walking and public transit. So I've told myself that I have to walk places that are like less than a 10-minute walk. There's no reason why I shouldn't be walking. Sometimes less than a 20-minute walk. If it's less than 20 minutes, I can definitely walk there. If it's like 20 minutes, then I've been saying like, hey, let's bike. I've barely biked this year. I just started doing this again in the last month. I have a bike. I've owned a bike for a couple of years now. Just didn't use it a lot this year, but I've started doing that. and also taking public transit. I've taken the train a lot, the L, our train system, but I had gotten to a place where I was kind of only taking the train, and it was like, oh, anything that was on the line that was closest to me is all that I would really do. Now I've been taking buses, and buses are freeing up a whole bunch of opportunities for me because I realized, again, more recently, I fucking hate driving. And I say this as somebody who has had a car for a very long time. I mean, I've had a car since I was 16. I used to really like driving when I was like more open, less traffic, whatever. Now that I live in a city, I hate driving. It ruins my mental health to sit in traffic, to be around people driving like absolute morons. It's awful. So what I realized is for a long time, I was very anti-bus because I was like, well, if I'm going to be in traffic anyway, I might as well be in charge of getting there on time and not having to wait for a bus and whatever. No, the magic of buses is that you don't get to see all the dumb shit happening with the traffic because you're in the back. You're like, you can't really see what's going on out there. You're not in charge of that. You're not stressed about that. You can't even check, you know? So even if you're like stuck, it's kind of like, okay, I'm stuck, but I get to like multitask. I get to like read a book or like knit if I was like having a knitting project or like be on my phone or whatever, but you're not stressed by the driving. So that's been lovely. I still have a car. I'm still driving places that are like very inconvenient to get to. I've been doing some bus connections, but if I have to do more than 2 buses, it's like, that's not happening. Or like some, you know, the buses stop at a certain time. And so it's like, sometimes it's easier to drive, whatever, really bad weather. I'm cutting down, but I'm accessing these resources way more. And walking, biking, and public transport forces you to engage with the place differently than if you're driving. It allows you to interact with your community more. Like you feel so much more connected to the place that you're living when you're taking public transit or biking or walking. Like it's just, you're in it. You're noticing more things. You're noticing more people. You're noticing other people around you. Like I know a lot of us are like, oh my God, social anxiety and what, I don't want to be around people. No one else is really going to talk to you. Like, are you going to get talked to sometimes on public transit? Sure. But you sometimes can get talked to just walking out your front door. Like, you know, that's not really protecting you that much. You feel like so much more of a part of your community if you're doing something like that. You notice way more stores and places that you never would have if you were just driving around, because it's really hard when you're driving to pay attention to what's around you, like stores wise and stuff. So by walking and taking public transit, I've found like way more local stores and stuff. I found a local vintage store where I recently got a new, well, not new, but new to me, right? Black jean jacket that fits me perfectly. I've been looking for a jean jacket like that for years. So yeah, I've written down so many places and I'm like, oh, I want to check that place out, which I never would have before. And like I mentioned, you get to just like skip the inconveniences of dealing with traffic. You might still be in traffic and you're going to have extra inconveniences having to like schedule around a bus or a train schedule, for example. However, this is that like meaningful resistance that I was talking about earlier, where it opens up more opportunities for you to be engaged with community, socialize, learn some skills, learn how to be bored, learn how to manage your time better, whatever, because you're doing all of those things. Now, all of these skills are also things that will eventually help me macrodose more inconveniences, because in addition to thinking about all these things, I've been like, man, there's some other skills that are way bigger skills because, you know, modern conveniences are very alluring, but I think will be helpful for me to learn patience, learn new skills, practice a lot of that brain stuff, whatever, and that also aligns with my values. Those things include learning to sew my own clothes, hopefully, I'm not making any promises. Also learning to knit and knit my own clothes. And I also kind of want to get into some like food preservation, canning type stuff. I don't have a garden space, but in the future, if I get a outdoor space, I also want to garden, which has been a thing for a while. So all these things have been percolating for quite some time. If you are interested, again, like I said, in learning more about this, talking about this, whatever, I have frequent updates on my microdosing inconvenience journey on the Bibliothecary, linked down below. And I will be doing more frequent videos and things about that topic. I do have a video planned for upcoming mending projects. I'm starting from scratch, y'all. I have never mended a thing. I have a bunch of projects lined up for mending that I will vlog going through and kind of like learning the process. My friend's going to teach me how to knit and hopefully the next couple of weeks. So yeah, that's my little ramble and action points on microdosing inconvenience and the power of inconvenience and why you should be inconveniencing yourself more. So comment down below. Let me know all of your thoughts. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.